BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform, number one source for everything football. BetOnline, every stat, every matchup, live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on the mega contest. Pick 5 games against the spread every week. Your chance to win weekly prizes of up to $200,000. Game's over. Head to the online casino. Get in on the game of blackjack, poker, unwind with over 150 slot games. You got the World Series coming up. NHL's going on. College football, you name it. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet online. The game starts here. Welcome to another edition of Believe in Giants. Bob Papa, 2-time Super Bowl champion. Carl Banks, the Giants fall to 2-5 on the season and really just overrun by the Philadelphia Eagles literally on Sunday at MetLife Stadium. 28-3 is the final score. And Carl, Giant fans obviously really frustrated. 0-4 at home. They're averaging 7.6 per game when they play at MetLife Stadium. And yesterday it was collective, right? The last couple of weeks we've talked about, if they make this play here on offense and just get a touchdown, they can win the game. Yesterday was kind of a team-wide breakdown in not finishing, and it resulted in this lopsided game.
Yeah, Bob, the warning signs were there, and the product that was on the field yesterday was unacceptable, point blank, unacceptable across the board. We've talked about how well the defense has played. And we've had these discussions the last couple of weeks, 3 weeks, about but for one big play, the defense had a great game. But for 2 plays, one was a fluke, the defense had a great game. So 2 things can be true as we look back on yesterday. Defense had 6 sacks. Jalen Hurts had under 200 yards passing. Devontae Smith had 1 catch for -2 yards. And A.J. Brown had, I think, 4 catches, and half the yardage he got was on 1 4th down play. So I say, yes, 2 things can be true. Defense played well, but they have repeated a behavior that blew up in their face yesterday. And I'll get back to that. We have these conversations about wide receivers dropping the ball. And you say, oh, they got to catch him. Well, for about 5 or 6 weeks straight, it's the same thing that kept happening each week. Same guys, same thing. And you say, well, if they catch this ball, then they would be better. Or, hey, if the quarterback throws a better ball, maybe they catch it. 2 things can be true. But what you have were a bunch of breadcrumbs that basically baked the fucking cake yesterday. It was a cake full of everything that they were bad at. And it was just creeping up, creeping up, creeping up. Never got better. But you can say, hey, but for the 2 plays, this defense was awesome. And I went to bat for this defense last week because I thought the offense was awful and I thought the quarterback played bad. But then you look at it, they have a pattern of giving up explosive plays every week. And when it was lopsided and when the offense couldn't be productive, you could say, but for those 2 plays, the defense was great. And if the offense would have given them something, they would have won the game. 2 things can be true. But the fact is, you're all in it together, and you've got to be able to correct your mistakes, because guess what happened yesterday? Defensively, you have these conversations for the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks. But for one play, they played great. But for two plays, they played great. Well, yesterday they had five. Three by Barkley, one by A.J. Brown on a 4th and 1. And then they had another one from the backup back that went for like 19 yards. So it was but for one play, but for two plays, now it was five. It got amplified because you know what? You never got better at preventing the explosive plays.
Yeah, they've given up, Carl, they've given up 9 runs now of 20 or more yards.
Sure.
6 going into yesterday. 3 more after the game. You had the Burrow 47-yard run. You had Saquon had 3 of them yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
That's too many. You can't allow 9 runs of 20 or more yards.
Right. So two things can be true. They are playing good defense, but they're not good enough because they have not corrected the explosive play problem. Offensively, the offensive line was, imagine, and most of you out there know the game Jenga. Imagine Andrew Thomas being the one piece that you slide out. Right now, the whole thing is teetering. And now you got to slide something else out or put something else in. And it was a collapse. The whole structure collapsed, minus Andrew Thomas. So they were playing Jenga with the offensive line. Pull Thomas out and everything was unstable. Quarterback did not have protection. The offense, no matter what plays they called, everything looked the same. Everything looked the same. And our radio producer, John Schmelk, sent me some numbers on when the Eagles blitzed, when they played base defense, and when they played sub defense. Do you know the Eagles played 80% nickel and dime defense? And you couldn't run the ball on a nickel and dime defense. And you couldn't pass it on a nickel and dime defense. Everything looks the same. The offense, and I don't want to be crude here, but it's plugged up. It's just everything looks the same. And is it a function of play calling? Possibly. Is it a function of playmakers, starting with quarterback, running back, wide receivers, and offensive line? I say it's all the above. But it doesn't matter what they call. You know, last week I said maybe they should have run the ball more. They should have been more concentrated on running the football more. But you know what? I don't sit in game plan meetings. And if you have plays to be made based on what Brian Dable is scripting, a la drop passes or missed throws or errant throws, then is that a play calling situation or is that a play making situation?
Playmaking, Carl. Carl,
So go ahead.
No, it's yes, Andrew Thomas was out. But so was Jordan Mailata, who,
Mm-hmm.
according to these grading systems that exist out there, has actually had a more productive season than Thomas to this point, as far as these ratings are concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And then they lost their starting right guard in the
Mekhi
middle of the
Becton.
game, Mekhi
Sure.
Becton with a concussion. So they were missing 2 guys.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you could call every play that you want in the world, but the same guys drop passes every week. And
it's not okay.
well, but it's been going on now for a while. It's not just that, it's going back to last year.
Sure.
And you sit there and you say to yourself, what is a play caller to do when we're missing simple protections? The quarterback can be inaccurate on layup throws. And I'm not talking necessarily about yesterday. I'm talking about collective.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we have something dialed up, we drop the ball. Like there was that ball behind Slayton, and his momentum was carrying him one way, but it hit him in both hands and his chest. And I'm watching. Everybody talking about Russell Wilson's performance uh, last night for Pittsburgh in his debut. How many balls were poorly thrown balls that guys made plays on?
Sure.
Tight end making a fingertip catch, keeping Pickens taking ball. The Giants aren't even making the layup plays.
Mm-hmm. And that is the issue. So I can give you from a former player perspective of how this is supposed to work, right? Every week you come in, your defense has done something well and your offense hasn't, right? So when you've had enough, everybody says, we got to do better, right? But they don't talk about it. They go out and do better. And the Giants' offensive players have to understand in order to do better. And I don't think any one of these wide receivers, I don't think any of them take the field expecting to drop footballs, but they have not prioritized catching the football. And I say that because you have to value possessions as an offense because you are not good enough to have one of those, we'll get it next time, or you'll catch the next one. You got to make a layup before you can shoot a jumper. And so when your offense is constipated and there's an opportunity to start a drive or to keep something going, that's how you get the movement. It's not, well, we punt, let's try it again next series. There's no play caller in the world who can call plays if you're fucking inconsistent. And yeah, we can count on you to make a big play. We can count on you to make a first down. But how about this? How can we count on you to get something going or to start a drive because your offense is so backed up that you just got to get the first one going, right? So you got to value possessions. Illegal man downfield again.
Yeah, you can't have that.
You have to value possessions. You're not good enough not to. Right, but it all magnified and blew up yesterday. It was always one-offs or two-offs. The whole thing blew up and it looked like a mess, right? And this, as a collective, the cavalry ain't coming to save you. You don't need a players-only meeting. You just got to go out and do your freaking job and value every play. Every play, offensively and defensively. Yes, defense, you're playing great until you're not, right? And that until you're not, it always ends up being a big play. And there was always an excuse, not an excuse, but but for that one play, they were awesome. Well, the but for one play ended up being but for 4 plays yesterday. It erased all of your sacks. It erased everything because here's the thing, and I am giving due respect to the Philadelphia Eagles, but it wasn't really that complex. They lined up, they punched you in the mouth, their running back ran through you like a hot knife through butter. Quarterback made enough plays to win the football game. His numbers look like, stat junkies will look at this in 2 weeks and there'll be some weird PFF number that says the Giants are holding teams to X amount of yards per game. And it doesn't matter if they get 20 yards per game. If that's 20 yards that beat you, then that ain't good enough, right? So you look at the stat sheet and there's enough on there to say, how did they lose? But yet when you look at the game, you know exactly how they lost.
Yeah, well, here's a misleading stat for you. The Giant defense held the Eagles to 1 for 13 on third downs.
Mm-hmm.
Knock your socks off, 1 for 13. But when they go 3 for 3 on fourth down, and 2 of them are touchdowns,
Yeah.
who cares about the third down numbers?
Yeah, because they play 4 downs in the NFL. But that
And
stat will show up somewhere for
yeah,
the stat junkies. But if anybody watched that game, third down wasn't good enough. That stop wasn't good enough because you couldn't get them stopped on fourth down.
listen, I'm sure they'd love to have this one back, right? It's 4th and 3 at the Giant 41, and the Giants are going to bring heat. I don't know what the communication was. I don't know if there was a miscommunication. Again, who knows what they were going to do. But their plan was on 4th and 3, we're going to get there before he can get the ball away.
Sure.
The problem, again, I don't know if it was a miscommunication on assignment or whatever the case might be, but you can't have Nick McLeod matched up one-on-one with A.J. Brown because that's where Hurts is going to go with the ball. I'm getting heat. It's coming. I got a one-on-one on the outside. He's my best receiver.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to have your best corner on him. And all due respect to Nick McLeod, like, right?
He was put in the situation. He didn't call the defense, but that's the card he drew, right? And it wasn't good enough. And this is, again, the most unacceptable product that they've had on the field this year. Now, there have been some frustrating performances, but as a collective, this was unacceptable.
Yeah, and again, just watching a lot of the other games yesterday, you know, there's these above the X's and O's plays, and not only are they not making the layups, forget about the above the X's and O's.
Yeah.
You can't even get to the above the X's and O's unless you make the layups.
You can't even make routine plays. And that's an indictment on everybody. Like, you know, Malik Neighbors is there. You can't get a drive going enough to even allow him to exploit the weaknesses. You know, they roll a safety over to him one time, and the next thing you know, they're punting. The Giants are. Because there's a drop somewhere in the drive, or there's a penalty somewhere in the drive, or there's a sack somewhere in the drive. And so if you don't value possessions in the NFL, you literally get dog walked off the field. And that's what happened. And it's the same thing goes for the defense, right? You can be great, and then all of a sudden they said, oh, Azeez Ojulari's on the edge. Let's run out there. First big play. He gets caught up first time on the inside of the edge. Okay, maybe it was a stunt. Maybe, I don't know. Second time, the second big run, they run the same thing at him again and have similar results. But this time, he couldn't get off the block. So the sacks were great early on, but how about the other things? Value the possession. If Barkley doesn't get out the gate, that means you did your job. You turned everything back in, but you did not. And then, as soon as Dexter Lawrence goes off the field, guess where they ran the ball?
Right where Dexter wasn't. Yeah.
Another big play. So, role players, do your job. Attention to detail, right? Best players have to be your best players, but they got to be your best players all the time. But it's just unacceptable because again, this ain't an effort situation. It's what do you value as a football player? What do you value as a team that's got their back against the wall and somebody's punching you in the fucking face? What do you value, right? Do you let them continue, or do you say, let's get this thing together? And this is by far, there's been some frustrating performances this year. But this was the culmination of all of those little things, attention to detail things. This was a culmination of all of those, and it blew up. And guess what? The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to punch you in your fucking face to see what you can do. That's how they play football. They don't care about your problems. They don't care about your feelings. So if you ain't coming in there ready for a fight, it'll be worse than what Philadelphia did across the board, offensively and defensively, because that is who they are. They don't care about your feelings. They're going to play one brand of football. And if you can't match it or slug back, they're going to dog walk you.
Carl, so we both know Darius Slayton is a very thoughtful, good person.
Mm-hmm.
We also watch, practice, and we watch before the games on the sideline. He's with the receivers coach, and he's just working on catching balls and stuff. And Wandale does his thing, work on the toe. They go through their routine, and all the receivers go through their routine. So work ethic is not a question. With these are conscientious young men that care. But when the same problems come up in the games repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly, at what point does the coach say, if we're not going to perform, because it's you do it in practice, but if it's not going to translate into success rates in the game, going to roll somebody else in there?
There ain't nothing to roll in there. That's the problem. And I heard the coach in his post-game presser, because he's kind of perplexed. He's like, we're doing all of these things in practice, but when we get into the game, it's not like the variables change that much. These game plans are based on not 1 week of the opponent, but 6 weeks of the opponent right now. So the variables they've practiced, they know how to execute it, and then it's almost like they get on stage and it's stage fright. Again, Bob, and I'm going to keep saying this, and it's repetitive, but I'm saying it anyway. They do not value possessions on offense. They do not value the football on offense, because if you did, it's not okay, because it's not a normal situation when you drop balls, when your team is in the state it's in. You've got to prioritize catching it. It's not okay to miss passes that are open. You've got to prioritize making them. It's not okay to miss a blitz. You got to prioritize blocking it, because they mostly ran 4-man rushes, occasionally another guy, and it's a communication issue. And again, that was the whole Jenga point that I was making. You pull Andrew Thomas out and the whole tower is now wobbly. Nobody knows what the hell they should be doing. That's not an in-game injury. They knew Thomas was out since Sunday or Monday when they announced he's done for the season. So they practice these contingencies. They do not value possessions on offense. RPO, illegal man downfield, not the first time they've run it. So they know the rule, right? And it's okay if you're hitting plays back to back and this one came back. No, you needed that play. Yeah. That was the only one you had, right? It's not like your offense is rolling and gosh darn it, I got downfield on that one. We'd have had one more big play. No, that was your only big play.
Right. And it happened 2 weeks in a row. 2 weeks in a row.
Value possessions, because in your head, you're thinking you're getting another opportunity. But in reality, your opportunity just flew out the window, because now your system, your offensive system is now backed up again. Door shut back on you, and you got nothing. So you can't get anything going until you get the simple things going. Attention to detail. That
Yeah, and they
is lack of prioritizing. Go ahead.
I don't know, and they got to figure out this left tackle situation because you know Azudu played some left tackle last year and it didn't go so well, and he struggled mightily in the game yesterday.
Yeah, I mean,
And
listen, they probably wanted to put Illuminor or thought about it, but then that's one more peg out of the Jenga tower that makes it even more unstable. But he struggled on the right side. It wasn't like he was playing as well as he's played all
yeah, they
year.
struggled everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, he had been pretty stable over there
No,
and he
he'd been good.
struggled.
He's been
Yeah,
good.
and he struggled yesterday.
And what
Um,
else did you say on the post game? Cincinnati did a really good job on Sunday night of attacking the interior of the offensive line.
mhm,
And guess where Philadelphia, they didn't blitz. It looked like a blitz, but they dropped like an end. So it really was only
mhm.
a 4-man rush. But pressure from the inside was, I mean, absolutely detrimental.
Bob, they don't value possessions. It wasn't like this is the first time the Eagles played this way. They've got a book on the Eagles. Communication is always important. And you didn't do your homework because if you thought that it was a one off, that BJ Hill and company were attacking you on the inside, you don't know how NFL football works. Because if you're being exploited one week, the next team's going to test that theory. And it's up to you to blunt that. They did not. So they had leakage all over the entire offensive line.
Carl, I needed a good night's sleep last night after that. So what did I do? I've been taking your advice. At night, I'm going with the Cherubundi. So what is it,
Yeah.
you ask? Tart cherries are the highest antioxidant fruit or vegetable in the world. So this is all natural, no sugar, natural anti-inflammatory, reduces soreness. It's a long day. I stand during the entire game on my feet for basically 10 straight hours. Helps in recovery. A little melatonin naturally in here to improve sleep, supports immunity. Every NFL team has it in their facility. NCAA football and basketball teams use it. And you can too. Let's go to Amazon. You can get anything on Amazon, right? Or go to cherubundi.com. Retailers nationwide, Publix and Kroger. I know you like the shots. I go with the
Yes.
drink. Got it nice and chilled. I'm even having one this morning because after 28-3, I was feeling exceptionally sore today on a lot of
Hmm.
different levels.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe we gotta get the whole giant team to be chugging these things
Yeah.
nonstop.
They need to be chugging the football, is what they need to be doing.
It'll be interesting to see, Carl. There was a lot of questioning of Brian Dable after the game about the Jalen Hurts scramble, where kind of looked like Deontay Banks sort of said, and Dable was asked about it. Now, I'm not sure necessarily that when you're the head coach and there's a lot going on during the course of the game, I'm sure they're going to look at the film and everything else. But, you know, this effort by this team, I can't question the effort by the team. However, that does stick out. And as a head coach, and as you know, someone that played for Parcells and stuff like that, if they see on the film or whatever they talk about it, they see it's an issue, it has to get clipped pretty quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah. So it does, Bob. There's a few things, right? I'm going to first preface this by saying it was a bad effort play by Deontay Banks. The calling for him to be benched, that ain't it. He's still your best player, right? Um, he had a shitty effort on that play. Now, there would be a different issue and I don't know if this makes it worse or better. Deonte Banks is a willing tackler. He doesn't shy away from tackles. So the fact that he turned that one down um, just was basically emblematic of how this defense played in situational football. Now, you probably can say, well, he should have dove, right? The runner was headed out of bounds. And I'm sure that's what he rationalized in his head. Well, the guy's going out of bounds. Why am I going to hit him? But on tape, it looks bad. And it was a bad effort. It was a decision you made as you're running. But the amplification of that play, it's a little bit more dramatic than it needs to be. And I'm not discounting the fact that it was a piss poor effort by Banks, but he's your best player back there. He's a willing tackler. I could see if he turns him down all the time. He does not. He comes up and he makes tackles. Um, Maybe he rationalized that the runner was heading out of bounds, but that doesn't excuse his effort on the play. But I don't know if it rises to the level of alarm that I'm seeing, and people are asking me, what would Parcells do? He'd get his ass chewed out, but he ain't going to get benched. And you know why he's going to get his ass chewed out? Because they're going to say, I've seen you make this play. I've seen you give better effort. And that would be the end of it, because this is not a kid who shies away from contact.
Let me ask you this, Carl. People say, what would Parcells say or whatever, chew him out. I'm sure he'll get chewed out. But maybe even before he gets chewed out, I'm guessing that Bobby Okereke or Dexter Lawrence will probably put an arm around the shoulder and say, listen, young man,
Below expectations.
this is not the expectation level that we expect when you have before he gets chewed out, he may get counseled by the elder statesman.
Yeah.
And that's the way these things most get handled, right?
Yeah. Again.
If you got a good core.
Right. And listen, I get it, because that was a culmination of all bad things on Sunday. So fans are like, they lump that in with shitty play across the board. But it doesn't warrant benching him. He's your best player. He's a willing tackler. I could see if he was playing bad all game. Devontae Smith had one catch for minus yardage. And I think that was Drew Phillips that made that play. Banks was doing something, but again.
Well, it's not like A.J. Brown killed the Giants.
But here's the thing.
And Banks wasn't on him on that play.
But this is basically how I started this thing off. Two things can be true. The defense could play well, and they could still be giving up plays. And that's not good enough. I've seen him play physical against A.J. Brown. He was jamming him at the line of scrimmage. That didn't show up on film. What showed up on film is you turning down or giving poor effort on a tackle. That's the bottom line. There's no excuses, but he ain't going to get benched, nor should he. I think the reaction to it was probably based on everything else everybody's pissed off about with the effort, not the effort, but the performance of this defense.
Anything else? I don't know what else to add. I don't.
Nothing. I'm going to just, here's another warning. Warning. Pittsburgh is going to punch you in your fucking face to see how you respond. Why? Not because Philadelphia did it, but that's what Pittsburgh does. They do it every week. And you better set your jib. and be ready to fight because they don't change who they are. It's up to you to define what type of team you're going to be when you walk into Pittsburgh. You know what you're getting. They're going to punch you in the fucking face. Be ready or not. But this, you know they're coming. This is their brand, and they stay on brand with everything they do. They may not do everything well, but that part of their brand, they're consistent with it for a very long time.
And I just have one more thought. I wanted to mention this earlier. And maybe it really is good to be playing on the road. And I know Pittsburgh and playing there is not going to be easy, and they have a unbelievably salty defense. But when you think about fumbling the opening kickoff in Cleveland, and in one play you're down 7-0 and facing adversity, and the fight that the collective showed to just respond. When you think about Seattle and fumbling the ball going in after this long, time-consuming drive, and suddenly you're down 7-0, and the team didn't blink, and they just got themselves back in the game, and they eventually won those 2 games. Here's the thing that I see when they play at home, Carl. They don't have that same collective sort of focus to leave it in the rearview mirror. Because, perfect example, you're down 14-0. Now you get a touchdown called off the board in a very ticky-tack call. So instead of going in 14-7, you're going in 14-3. But you got points. You had a productive drive. Then you come out in the third quarter, and your defense holds Philadelphia to a 3-and-out. They gained 4 yards on 3 plays. Punt. You get the ball. You got a chance to get right back in. Even if you drive down the field and get a field goal there to make it 14-8, now it's a 1-score game. Go get a touchdown, get it to 4. And it felt like on that 3rd and 3, when when Wan'Dale Robinson dropped the 3rd down pass, it hit him right in the stomach again. It's like the game was over.
Yeah.
Like the game was over with 12:01 to go in the 3rd quarter. And the thing I can't understand is why we have examples of games on the road where they've dealt with many more traumatic experiences, like fumbling an opening kickoff, having a 92-yard drive, and with a fumble that you not only didn't score, they scored.
Right.
And they mentally were so tough, and yet, even in the Washington game, they're giving up all these rushing yards and things are going, but they came down the field and they drove it. And unfortunately, neighbors dropped the ball and all that, but they fought through the adversity. At home, they don't fight through it. It feels like they can't fight through it at home. It's the most bizarre thing ever.
I'll give you Exhibit A. Your quarterback, now he's been under duress. He breaks the pocket. There are 3 receivers down the field. Their defenders who are in zone defense are all
they played zone almost the whole game, too.
Right. So how about this? So Daniel Jones breaks the pocket to his left. Now he's buying time. He's looking. Once he broke the pocket, he's buying time. And I'm looking at the defensive backfield. Every one of those DBs are looking at Daniel Jones. You know where the Giants receivers were? Standing next to those DBs, looking at Daniel Jones. All you got to do is turn and break for the end zone. That's where you lose people when you play zone defense. Man defense, you might get faked out, right? Zone defense, if everyone, you go look at this film, all 3 of the defenders in the back, all looking at Daniel Jones. And the receivers are standing right next to them, not even making themselves available. Valuing possessions when you need to make a play.
I think that was in the 2nd quarter.
Yeah.
I remember you were shocked at it.
I mean, they're literally standing next to each other. Like, go vertical. Like, in zone defense, if their eyes are back on the quarterback, their eyes ain't on you. and all three of you guys are just standing there. Turn and go to the end zone. Let the quarterback let it rip, right? Because he actually bought time and he's looking. Somebody help. Nobody. They're all standing still. Just sprint. Let him throw the ball up there and see what you can get. But that is what I say about a team that does not value possessions. Because if you did and you needed a play, somebody would have just taken off. But it is what it is. Monday night is a new game. You only get 17 in the season. You don't get 32. So don't worry about what your standings are. Playoffs are not even a consideration. Your only concern is winning, finding enough plays to win the game on Monday night.
There you go. How do we like to end it, Carl?
Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Believe in
Believe in
Giants.
Giants.